This video is sponsored by mpb.com.
Do you ever go out and take a landscape photograph, and when you take the photograph you look at it and you think, yep, that is exactly what it is? Now, I'm not sure if anybody else will relate to this, but sometimes the things we're photographing look too much like the things we're photographing. It's really difficult to explain, but sometimes when I find a subject that I quite like, for one reason or another, I don't know, but when I photograph it, I don't get the same feeling that I got in real life. For example, you might find a nice looking tree and you take a photograph of the tree, you look at the photograph and you go, yep, yeah, no, that's a tree. That's a tree in a field. Now, this is all subjective, of course, but for me, landscape images or nature images that look too much like the real thing don't always work. And when I say look too much like the real thing, I mean they look too familiar. And that's where the skill of the landscape photographer comes in, to get those familiar subjects and make them look like something different, something less familiar. And the way we do this is through composition, light, mood, atmosphere, lens selection, aspect ratio selection, the choice of film that you use, all kinds. The list goes on and on. So this is the last photograph that I took. So when I took that photograph, I was having a bad day. In fact, I was having a couple of bad days. In fact, I would go as far as to say I was in a photography slump. And on that particular day, I couldn't make anything work. I was looking for perfection. Perfection didn't exist. So I was just kind of blocked off to all kinds of creativity. I had tunnel vision. And I'm experienced enough to know that my landscape photography is cyclical. I go through peaks and I go through troughs. Sometimes I can make images anywhere and get excited by everything. Other times I don't want to go out my camera, nothing excites me, and I think, oh my God, is that it now? Am I done with photography? Have I just lost interest? But this has happened many times and it always comes back. And quite often the way that it comes back is by taking things back to the beginning, experimenting, having fun. I mean, gosh, that's why I shoot film, that's why I bought a Polaroid camera, that's why I shoot infrared, I shoot all kinds of photography to keep it fresh, keep experimenting and keep learning. And that is so important, and that beautifully brings me on to what I'm doing today. And that is turning the familiar into something less familiar. How can you create interesting images? Images that get the viewers asking questions. Images that bridge the lucid and the abstract. When you've got these conditions, it's a sunny/cloudy day, it's winter's over, so there's no frost, mist or snow, there's no ice, it's not quite spring yet, so we haven't got the flowers, it's muddy, it's damp, it's dull as dishwater, it's positively uninspiring. But the beauty of photography is there is so much we can do. And today I am going back, you know, it's 3 years ago since I hung out with Andy Gray and practiced ICM, that's intentional camera movement photography. And I have done some of that since then. But I want to try something, I want to take it one step further, and that's ICM with multiple exposures, yes. And I tell you what, I think it's a fantastic tool that we should have in our bag. Let me try and demonstrate, because I'm still learning. So in front of me, we have a couple of wonderful birch trees. I can recognize that they are fantastic subjects and the way that they're arranged is great, but conditions aren't right. So when you take a photograph of them, you look at the photograph and you go, yeah, it is what it is. It's a couple of trees in a field, you know, it's lacking that magical ingredient. So what I'm going to do instead is combine ICM with multiple exposures, and I'm going to create an image which encapsulates the idea of the image, takes away all reality, leaving just shape, form, and an abstract feeling of what I'm looking at. You could say that's impressionist, which it very much will be. So this is the image that I've just photographed, just a single straight shot, very much a snapshot, absolutely nothing to it whatsoever. So intentionally I'm going to try and create this into a piece of art. The first thing I'll probably do is change my aspect ratio to a square, and that's so that I can contain the subject, which is the two trees, that tree there and that tree there. Now we have nice contrast in the scene, but there's not really any colour, so I'm going to switch my camera to monochrome so that I'll be shooting black and white. I'm going to set my shutter speed to about a 25th of a second because I don't want everything to be pin sharp, I want a bit of motion blur, and then I'm just going to shoot a few frames of this tree, making sure it's composed correctly. There'll be a bit of movement overlaying the images, and I'll explain more about all of that sort of stuff. But for now, I just want to get the shot, put it on screen, and then I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments on this. Well, yeah, we'll see, because I don't even know myself. Gosh. Okay. So the first couple of images, I whipped the camera, that was motion blur, so that I almost create like a vignette, like a dark circle around the image. Then I took 5 more images after that where I barely moved the camera at all. I tried to keep the frame exactly the same. Of course, it's never going to be perfect. It's going to be that bit of a bit of motion blur. But if you think of it, if you think that you're taking a picture of a tree, right? And then imagine that you're sketching a tree. When you sketch a tree, you don't draw a tree like this, you draw a tree like this over and over and over again, so you're sketching it. Essentially, to me, that's what it feels like I'm doing. For every frame, it feels like one stroke, and the resulting image should be an abstract photograph that looks like a pencil drawing and gives that feeling, the idea of what I'm seeing here. So I'm creating my own atmosphere, and I am having a lot of fun, and I'm very excited to move on and find some more subject. So this location is very familiar to me. I come here all the time in all different conditions. I've been here with my infrared camera and got some great images, but every time I come here, I look at those trees there and I think there has to be a shot. And I've spent so much time staring at them and never taken a photograph. So I think today might be the day. Now I'm going to do everything exactly the same as I did before, apart from I don't want to shoot these black and white because I really like the greens and the dark black. So I'm going to keep that colour and see if I can capture the form, because I think that's that's always what intrigues me with these trees. What I'm attracted to is the shape, structure and form of them. Oh, and also I'm not shooting square, I'm keeping it as a 3:2 aspect ratio. I'm at a 25th of a second, and I'm going to do my first shot, which is going to be a whipper. All right, so there's one. And then I'm just going to try and hold it as steady as I can and capture the remaining 6 images. And do you know what? That's not bad. Let me show you. So that looks just like a painting. I've captured the form and the shape of them, none of the detail. It's abstract, and it's exactly what I'm trying to achieve today. And I tell you what, I could see myself doing this a lot more going forward, not just a one-off for a YouTube video, but having this as something I regularly practice in the field. It's so good when things aren't going your way, or even better when things are going your way. Imagine this. I mean, I'm in flat, boring conditions in a relatively obscure woodland. It's neither here nor there, let's be honest. Yeah, I'm creating nice images. Imagine in an epic landscape with beautiful light. I think that's where this could really shine. Not as a tool to be used when there's no other options, but actually as the main option. Why not? I mean, flipping heck, I'm all about the abstract, the painterly. Yeah. Why didn't I, man, it took a creative block for me to pull this out of the bag, and that's not how it should be. Oh, so I'm sure there's some of you watching this who might want to give this a go that's not done it before, and you're thinking, how do you do that in camera? Well, with this 𝘧𝘧𝘪 II, it allows you to take up to 10 images, multiple exposure, and then you can blend them in a few different ways. But what I would say is this: you don't need a fancy camera to do this. In fact, one of the great things about this type of photography is it's about the feel of the images. It's about the why and not the how. You don't need the best glass, you don't need the most megapixels. We're actually stripping all of that back. So really, you can do this with the cheapest of cheap camera. It doesn't matter. You take your series of images, as many as you want, 2, 3, 5, 10, whatever, and then you open them as layers in Photoshop, and then you just average everything out. It's really very straightforward. Personally, I'm really enjoying the feature of this camera, allowing me to do it and get the instant feedback, because I'm not big on post-processing. Now, actually, completely unplanned, I promise, that brings me beautifully, a beautiful segue onto today's sponsor, which is MPB. MPB.com is a place where you can buy, sell and trade your camera gear. So if you haven't got a camera, or you want to upgrade, or you want to get something, you know, like say you just need a cheap camera, you go to MPB and you could buy yourself an old DSLR that's going to cost you not much at all, and you could experiment and have fun and practice this kind of photography. Or alternatively, you might want to upgrade to a Nikon Z7 II, for example, that has it all in camera. Again, you could get a good used example on mpb.com, and if you want to sell your gear, it's nice and straightforward. You just put in your camera details, the condition that it's in, and then MPB will give you a quote, and then if you accept that quote, they'll send you a shipping label. Jobs are good and no faff. Straightforward. So yeah, big thank you to MPB for sponsoring today's video. Right, I'm going to see what else I can find. Oh, hello. I'm just seeing things in the viewfinder there that I'm looking for. Shape, form, contrast. That's what I'm looking for. Things that are easily identifiable and you don't necessarily need to see every bit of texture and detail. You know what this reminds me of? You know when you see a reflection of trees in some water and you photograph the reflection, maybe you flip it upside down and it creates this painterly image of these trees that doesn't quite look real, but you can identify what it is. You know, again, bridging the abstract and the lucid. I've spotted a scene I would typically just shoot as a single frame. It's just this reflection of pine trees in this pond. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the technique that I've been using throughout this video, which is a bit of ICM followed by stacking several images on top of that ICM. It is a certain amount of pot luck with this. So we've got the first image here, and I'm just going to line up my composition and keep it as steady as I can. The great thing about this actually is that the LCD screen here overlays the images live, so I can preview my image, my stack, as we go, which is quite nice. See how that one worked out. Yeah, it's not bad. I don't think it's as good as the other two images, but it certainly isn't bad, and it's something I'll probably keep on working at. So when I make videos like this and experiment with my photography, I never want it to come across as if all these ideas are my own, and I love to give credit where credit's due. I've already mentioned Andy Gray, the king of ICM. I'll link to him below. But also, I want to give a credit to another photographer. When I was on St Kilda last summer, if you haven't seen that video, I will link to it below. On the boat ride back, I met a gentleman called Gary McIntyre, and I've been checking out his work ever since. He's a really nice guy. We had a great chat on the boat. And he did a fantastic video. In fact, he did 2 videos on multiple exposure stacking and ICM. I'm going to link to the video below. Check it out, and that will give you an idea of what's possible with this type of photography. And it was that really made me think, you know, man, I need to do more of this, because you can truly turn the mundane into the extraordinary. So yeah, go check that out. Now, it's getting very dark, so I'm going to spin you around, try and get some light on my face. Yeah, there we go, that's a bit better. So, one thing that might not come across in this video is the fact that I have been experimenting like mad. It kind of looks like I've just nailed these 3 images first time. Truth is, I've been shooting all afternoon, trying different shutter speeds, different techniques, and just having a play, and most of the images don't come out. And one thing I've noticed more than anything is as the light begins to fade, because it's getting dark now, you lose so much contrast in the landscape. You lose luminosity contrast and you lose color contrast, and those 2 things are vital to make these images work. So that's me done for the evening, as now it's more or less nighttime. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I just want to say I've got 2 books available, none of which, by the way, contain any images of ICM and multiple exposure, but hey, volume 3 might, because as I've mentioned many times before, I want to just carry this forward. I want to use it more. Because it's just great, having a lot of fun, a lot of strings to my bow, and this is another one, and I'd encourage everybody to give it a go. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all next time. All right, bye bye.